Welcome to another episode here on A New Life in France. Each and every week we try to bring you something different. It might be a story, it might be some properties, it'll be our French lesson, but also we're trying to bring you areas of France, and they are areas of France that are popular for the expats to come and look at and eventually to move to. We've done recently Brittany and Normandy, and really hope you enjoyed that. We had some great feedback on that as well. And the reason we're trying to bring you these areas, just to bring you a little bit more insight into that area. So when you're starting to look to where you're going to move to, it gives you the ability to understand the area a little bit more. What are some of the great points about it? What are the things you can visit and do and then become part of? But also, what are some of the towns, the cities, the countryside, the rural areas? What are they actually like for you to be able to enjoy? Today, we're going to be looking at the Loire Valley. It is super historic in the Loire Valley. And the Loire itself, the river itself, is actually the longest flowing river in France. And it meanders its way from the Ardèche all the way through and then bends round, heading then back out to the Atlantic. Now for me, you've got the rivers such as the Vienne, and I am in the Haute-Vienne, and the Vienne is very close to where I live. That is a tributary and that feeds into it, but also the Indre and also the Cher as well. So you're pulling from the north and the east and the west as well as it flows through from the Ardèche. It is such a famous river and it is such a famous area. And of course, many people will know it because of the wines. And the wines in that area are there because of the beautiful countryside, but also its geology. When we look at the history of the wine in that area, and I'm not going to do too much into it, when we look at the history, that really comes from about 2,000 years ago. It is the Roman influence in that area that really comes to it. The Loire Valley, when we talk about the Loire Valley, the real key areas, you're probably going from Orléans, which is not that far southwest of France, and then you go from Orléans to Blois, to Tours, to Angers, and then ultimately to Nantes on the Atlantic coast. And that really is the Loire Valley in its true sense, and that's what people are used to, and that's what people know. Now, again, a little bit of history. If you go back to the 100 Years' War, what you're looking at there, it actually was the border between the English and the French. And so it has lots of history there as well. And it's one of those great places where there is so much history. And the history is really reflected in the buildings. You look in the architecture of those big cities, but also in the smaller towns in those areas as well. You can see that feel, that look, the feel. You've got the influence from the Romans, you've got the medieval times as well, but also then you've got a little bit of sense of that in today's modern era as well. And what I do like about the area, it's very undulating. You have the river flowing through, of course, and it's very wide when you're talking about the Loire Valley in its real sense. But what you also have there is you have some lovely valleys and you have lots and lots of forests. But again, when you have that nod back to history and you think about what you're going to discover in that landscape, you're going to discover lots and lots of chateaux. And the Loire Valley is an area, you're probably looking at 300 different types of chateau and large country houses. Such is its history, because those living in Paris would have their country seats, and the Loire Valley was seen then as very much as it is today as the garden of France, for its abundance of trees, of flowers, of the agriculture in the area, and of course the wines. So actually within that it has so much to offer. So let's have a look a little bit more though in terms of if you were to move there. Now I've already mentioned some of those towns, and I think probably if we think about some of the bigger towns and cities, if you think about Tours and Nantes probably as the two main cities within that area. Now you've both got airports in Nantes and you've got airports in Tours as well. So those of you coming in, flying in from there, you can come in. You've also then got the links back to Paris, and you've got the motorway links coming in there. So you've got the access to those bigger towns and cities. Now for me, Tours is a beautiful city. It has a real mix though. In the central part, you've got the history, you've got the medieval side. You come out a little bit more like many modern cities. You will have much more sort of generalistic housing that comes there. You also then have the retail parks and the superstores that go with it. And I suppose in France, maybe like other places across Europe, Within Tours, it does have an IKEA, and that probably gives you a sort of flavour that people will use that as a point to go to buy bigger furniture and bigger things. So Tours would be one of those bigger cities in France as well. It has great rail links as well. When you actually come through on the motorway, you go up across the big SNCF plants and centre that's there. There are so many rail lines there. It is real central for the communications, and of course it is on the Loire as well. So Tours, for me, would be a very central point. And then, of course, you've got Nantes as well, which is on the Atlantic coast. Again, that is a big city and really well serviced. So those would be two key points. Everything in between is that mix of countryside towns, lovely little villages, lots of little history that's coming in there. And of course, you've got the wine region coming through there. Now, the Loire has both its white wines and it also has its red wines as well. And the gastronomy in the area, oh, the food, it is so famous for so many different things that are there. But also what you have with those famous foods, and we'll talk about those in a minute, what you have about the famous foods and the wines, you then also have that replicated in the towns and the little villages as well. So when you go to the charcuterie or you go to the boulangerie, then you've got those variances in terms of the bread and the meats. And of course, let's not forget the fish. And what you see then with the Loire itself, there is some wonderful fishing. And actually fishing is coming back now. You know, there's been a lot of preservation done. There's been a lot of great work done through rivers, not just in France, but across Europe. And you now do see that now reflected, that there are more fishermen now in that area. Let's now have a little look more in terms of that food and the drink within the area. Food and drink across France is just so popular. It is popular for those who live there and it's popular for those that visit there. The reason about that is because France is such a countryside area. It produces some wonderful food. And when we look at that food, then we are looking at beef, we're looking at pork, we're of course looking at fish in this area as well. We're also looking at lamb, but particularly in the Loire Valley area, what it is really famous for is many great pork dishes. And we're really looking there again, and I talk about Tours a lot there. And we do have the rillettes de Tours. The rillettes there made with pork. They are just beautiful, just spread on your lovely baguette that's coming through there, slightly toasted, maybe a little bit of salt on the top. But again, that's really famous for that as well. You've also got the sausage from that area as well, the andouillette. Now, it's not for everyone's liking. It's a very fatty pork sausage. For me, it's probably just a little bit too fatty, but it's a real famous area for that. So again, the sausage there is really, really, really good. You can also then take that sausage, probably the really nice red wine as well. And again, we're talking about the wines in the area. You've got the Chenin Blanc, you've got the Vouvray as well, two really well-known white wines from that area. And of course, with the Vouvray, it could be a dry, it could be sparkling. It is just there, and it really reflects the area that it comes in. When we talk about reds, probably one of the more famous there is the Anjou Rouge, beautiful red wine. It's not as deep as some of the more southern wines, but it's a lovely red wine as well for that area. So when you start to piece all of this together and you think about the fish and the pork and the beef, then that is reflected in what you can buy in that area. And I really encourage you to look at that. So when you're looking to buy in that area, and when you talk to agents as well, it is a well-priced area. You've probably got to go just slightly on the borders just to get a little bit more value for money. But what you do get is you get some great properties in there as well. And the properties themselves have a lovely limestone feel to them. That lovely limestone feel is the tuffeau, as they call it there. It is the colour of that limestone, and that really reflects itself in all the great chateaux in the area and also the properties that you're going to buy if they've got a little bit of history to them as well. When you look then, you've got a number of small villages and towns, and you really then are able to enjoy a rural life, but you do have access to great areas. So what I look at when we're looking at properties is, if you're going to buy a property, what are you going to do? So if you're looking to retire to the area, what a beautiful area to retire to. You'll weather through the year, you will get some lovely summers, you'll get great autumns, you'll also get, particularly if you're not near the coast, you'll get a cold winter. You'll sometimes get those easterly winds come in from Russia and they'll push their way through, and that will feel cold and you'll get those cold snaps. You're also just north enough in France, you will also get some snow at times. I don't think you're going to get feet of snow, you're not, but you will also see snow in that area. But you will have very lovely summers. You're probably going to have a summer that's pushing around that 30-degree mark, and you'll be able to enjoy that. So the retirement is great because there's lots to do, and again, it is really well placed and you can move around the area. Now, if you're moving to actually then maybe start a family, then you've got great schools. Again, you've got really good communication routes. You could again be looking at the kind of artisan way that you might want to run your own business. You might want to be working remotely, and of course all the financial rules around that, but you might be able to work remotely as well and have a really nice property in a nice area. What you should be also looking at in terms of that as well is if you are looking for something that is a tourist type business, if you're looking to take something on that's got a gîte, it is a massive tourist area because there are so many chateaux, the walking, the cycling around there is great, and the countryside and the history, there is so much to be able to do there. Now also with the Loire Valley, if you've got people coming to holiday from there, then they can easily go north to Brittany and Normandy to actually enjoy something that's up there as well if they're on holiday. Or they're going to use you as a stop-off point, maybe have a week in sort of that northern part of France and then head down to the south for another week. You can also then get across to Paris as well. So it has a lot going for it in terms of that tourist area. And so for me, there are lots of great properties that are for sale in that area that you could look to run that as a gîte business. It gives you some residual income coming through summer months, but even maybe into the winter months. And what you will also find as well, you'll also find people that come for long weekends to that area, particularly those maybe coming from Belgium, from Holland and from the UK. They will come into that area, so it does also have that going for it. If you're looking to do more in that area and actually live a bigger life, and maybe you want to bring up a family, again, it's got everything that you want from there. You've got the hospitals, the schools and everything that goes along with it. Now, again, for me, I think if you were raising a family in that area, again, you're going to be able to find a nice property with a bit of land. It's got lots of history. You've got the outdoor life as well, and that is dictated by the river flowing through. You've also then got the accessibility to the bigger towns and cities that we've already spoken about, but also being able to get into Paris. So Paris, probably from a commuter or from just a visiting point of view, it's well serviced and you're able to go from there. You've also got great motorway links coming through as well, particularly coming from, say, Calais to Rouen, from Rouen down to Tours, and then you can start to move down again. So you've got those links coming through. It is very agriculture in that area. You must remember that there's lots of open space. So you could move to a town, you could move into a city if you wanted. Now again, we don't see that many people move to the cities in that northern part, in the Loire Valley and beyond. Maybe again, when you go down to Marseille, down to Nice, then you do see people moving into apartments in the cities, but not as common in, say, the Loire Valley. But I really encourage you to go and look into that area. There are a lot of really good agents in the area. You can go and look in there. You can start to go online, build a picture, but definitely go there. Now do remember, because it's touristy, but it's not as touristy as the south, it will be quieter in those winter months. It will be busy in the summer, but it will be quieter in those winter months. Now it's unlike to be as quiet as some of the southern towns, which suddenly you've lost all your tourists and they do become quiet. They don't become ghost towns, they're just much quieter and not so much is open. You don't see as much of that in the Loire Valley. But I think for the Loire Valley, it is such a long stretch. When you think going from Orléans to Nantes, there is such a vast area to look in there. For me, probably the hot spots are probably around Nantes. That's very much a hotspot area. And then looking probably around that Tours area as well, probably even looking at Blois, which is in the area as well. Those are probably three hot spots that you need to be aware of. And when I say be aware of, that's a positive thing. So you probably want to be maybe within 50 kilometres of those areas, because it gives you the access to get into the cities, gives you access where people are coming to for the tourists and everything else that goes along with that. So I think the Loire Valley is another great area, and we're trying to bring you the areas that we know that people like to move to. We know that people like to move, maybe start a family, start a new life there. They like to move because they want to retire there. You will also find a number of people have second homes in that area as well, particularly those from the UK, because it's very easy access to either ferry and drive or fly and drive. So again, you could look at that. So for me, the Loire Valley is great. It is an area that I have explored and I have enjoyed, and I think for cycling it's great, but also if you're coming over with a motorhome, you can enjoy that around that area as well. But you really have got, in that Nantes area, you're very close to the coast, you're onto the Atlantic, and again it's got that ruggedness. Start to come inland and it becomes much more agricultural, it becomes much more medieval as well, and you've got all the chateaux to look at. But I think as a place on your shortlist to have a look at, definitely look at what you can get in terms of your money in the area. But do remember, the Loire Valley area has so much to offer and it is so rich in history. And I just think it's a great place to have a look and go, would that be the place for me? And I know a number of people move there because they don't want the heat of the south. And actually the Loire Valley gives a very pleasant, lovely area to move into. And you still get great summers, wonderful autumns, cold winters, and really blossoming springs. Really hope what you've enjoyed today. Really hope you've enjoyed that little snapshot into the Loire Valley. There are links below as well where you can find out more on our fact sheets that we're bringing you, and of course get in touch with some of the agents in that area as well to find your perfect property. Really hope you've enjoyed today's episode here on A New Life in France. Do remember to subscribe. Press the subscribe button in the bottom. Go to our website, anewlifeinfrance.com, where you find out lots more information. Remember, our 2025 guide is just about to come out. Moving to France and living in France. We really hope you're going to enjoy that as well. Also, if you're looking for us to help you, we can help you. We are on hand to help you with looking to make that move. So if you're looking to make that move to France and you want more information on where to find my property, on visas, it's the big thing. Also then when you're moving here to France, getting your bank account set up, getting everything set up for you and helping you on your journey, we are there to help you on that journey to come and move to France.